Hello and welcome, my name is Sapare and this is my look at Knights and Merchants, including the Knights and Merchants remake. Knights and Merchants is a game from 1998. It's a slow town building game. You have to build a stable town industry and realm production to defeat your enemy with troops and soldiers, which technically are also troops, but whatever. The remake is a modification for the base game, which was made more recently to make the game more stable on modern systems and also to add a few options that we have grown to be used to, such as windowed mode. The base game did not have a windowed mode. Autosave, unlimited amount of saves because the base game only had 10 impossible save places, and generally stuff like that. Not that many options, but a few more than the game used to have. There is also multiplayer thanks to the modification, but I have not actually tried a multiplayer, so I will not be discussing that further. The single player is divided into two campaigns, technically a third one if you add the mod, but I have not actually played this campaign. This is a main campaign that I would advise to play first, and this one would be the campaign to play second, even though I'm pretty sure you're never gonna finish this one, because the campaign has 20 missions. Each mission takes 2 to 4 hours, bearing the combat missions. Generally I would say you're probably gonna sit at this for 60 hours at least if you do beat it, which I've never done. I've gotten to mission 14 out of 20. The campaign is split into combat missions and industrial missions. I will be showing a combat mission first, simply to explain the way that combat missions work and also to show the combat. So combat is based in squad systems. So you have this unit, it always follows a flag bearer. The flag bearer is where you click, so if I click here, then that's where the flag bearer would go, and every other unit would go around it. You can also have the options in here, which allows you to change the amount of the line amounts, so you can have less lines or more lines, which can change the formation of the units. You can turn your units, which you can also more easily do with this spear thingy, so there's technically no reason to ever use this unless you just wanted to. You can tell you guys to stop moving, which sometimes is useful. You can combine troops to make one bigger troop. You can feed your people, and you can separate the troops to make 2 smaller groups. Pretty much that's what you kind of expect in a system like this. It works pretty well, the main problem being that sometimes the reliance on the flag bearer can be problematic. It can cause your troops to do things you don't want to, because if the flag bearer dies and he becomes a new flag bearer, all the orders you give are going to be based on him, which is most of the time not what you wanted to have, because then suddenly the troops move completely different than you wanted them to. There's also the thing that once your units are in combat, you cannot get them out of combat until they die. So if I move these guys into melee range, they are now locked in melee range. I cannot do anything till they are dead or the enemy is dead. Which, it makes sense that they would add that, because it stops you from just walking past the enemy and killing the archers. But sometimes it's extremely frustrating if a single unit gets stuck on an enemy and then the whole force just gets stuck in it. It might be better if you were able to divide troops in the middle of combat and then tell one half to go away. Besides that, this is mostly how combat goes. You try to fight shield guys with technically other shield guys. You try to fight pikemen with shield guys. You try to shoot at pikemen. You try to kill archers with horsemen and that kind of stuff. It's not like it's super hard counter system where you can't defeat one type of unit with another type of unit, but it generally tends to be most efficient to use the correct types of unit against the correct types of unit. Besides that, you have the more 5-hour like missions that I mentioned earlier, which are the missions that have an industry. So you have to build a town like this, and you have a grid system that you build your town on, and you have roads which you build. The AI, you can't directly control a normal worker AI, you can only control soldiers. So I can tell these guys to move, but I can't tell these guys to move. They tend to be pretty smart, but there are some flaws in them that you kind of need to learn. I wouldn't say so much flaws as quirks, but there's a few things that are weird. For example, your workers will always prefer building roads above anything else. So if you tell you guys to build a lot of roads, your town is never gonna get finished because they never build the building that you actually need. They're just gonna build all the roads. The next thing being, you guys will be completely dumb when it comes to enemies and building roads or anything. They will just walk right into the enemy and get murdered. As they don't care about the enemy, they will ignore them completely and just get killed. Once you actually build a town, that's what it would look like after an hour, and then probably it would take another hour to build troops and another hour to kill your enemy, and that's how you get 3 hours into the mission. There's a lot of animations, which is very nice. That's one of the main positive things about this game. If you just want to play a game that looks nice and you just want to have a pleasant world experience, I think this game is nice, at least the early game. The first 6 missions are fun. After that it becomes a bit frustrating, but I'm going to explain that later. So it has great music, which I have not actually brought up yet. You can also switch between songs at will, which is great because there's a lot of tracks and sometimes you want to hear this one specific track over again. At the same time, it kinda is a bit silly because the music does not care what is happening in the world. You can have really happy music playing and people getting murdered, or you can have really dramatic music playing and just having this. There's a lot of, as I said, there's a lot of animations and very well drawn animations. This is probably one of the most beautiful 2D games I've ever seen, and that's not an exaggeration. It obviously has aged a bit, but it just, the simple amount of detail that goes into every single action that you can do, or that your people can do. It looks different based on ramps they build. When they make bread, it looks like that. When they cut wood, you have something for them cutting stone. You have a guy for cutting gold. I don't think you can cut gold, but whatever. You have a guy for mining coal. You have a lot of things. Production is kind of simple, but it's not super. It's not simple enough that it makes you bored, but it's also not extremely complicated. All you need to do to build buildings is wood and stone. All you need is to build roads is stone. So really, all you need is stone and wood at the simplest of levels. Early campaigns also don't require you to get anything else but stone and wood at the beginning. And then you need food, so you need grain, and then you need flour, so you make grain into flour, and then you make flour into bread. You take grain and make it into pigs, and then you make pigs into sausages, because your people will not eat pigs. I don't know, like even if they're starving to death, they will not eat pigs, they need sausages. That kind of stuff. You have an inn where everyone will go to eat, which early game you might think you only need one, and early game you only need one, but once your town becomes larger you need more than one, because it becomes a bit silly where they can only put 5 food of each. They can only put 5 of each food type into your inn, which means your people will start starving to death even though there's like 100 bread in here. Currently there's technically 100 bread in here and they will still starve because they can't go in there to eat food. To build units you use gold, not just troop units but generally to build anything. So you click that button and then it will start producing that guy. You build those in the schoolhouse, you only really need one of them. And then you build a serf, and the serf is a guy who carries objects everywhere. You build the laborer, which is the guy who builds stuff, the stonemason. You have one leg for each type of building. And then you have the final one, which is a recruit, which is what you need to build troops. So you build a recruit who will then in turn go into the building that I'm looking for. He will go into the barracks, and in barracks you need the specific weapon types to build the unit. For example, to build a crossbowman you need an iron armor and a crossbow and then a recruit. Currently I don't have any recruits, but that's what I would need. And then you build the crossbowman and then he comes out of there and then he just is a normal soldier. Soldiers, unlike all other type of units, will not go to the inn to eat, so you actually need to tell your serfs to bring food to them because I guess they're lazy bitches like that. And the thing is, the only reason why you would build more than one schoolhouse is to build more recruits at the same time, but the game actually does not work that way because only one guy can be bound to one building at a time, at least with the barracks. So the other guys will wait till all the recruits have entered and then the next recruit will enter. So you can't actually build like 10 recruits at the same time and have all 10 enter the building at the same time. So that's a bit of an annoyance. Besides that, there's not really that much to do. You have to balance out the amount of food and the amount of weapon production and the amount of wood and anything else that you might need. You tend to need wood all throughout the game, just because that's also what you do to build ramps. Stone you kind of don't need later game anymore, or at least not as much. Besides that, the bad parts of the game, that generally the good parts and generally the interesting parts. The bad parts of the game are the AI is completely OP. It doesn't actually build any buildings, but it will start with way too many troops in the later missions. This being mission number 14, and as you can see, my 2-hour game just got ruined by the AI deciding to murder me brutally, and it will not stop. It will just destroy the building, and it's like, oh, let's destroy this building, and then it will be like, destroy that building and destroy this, and I lost. There's nothing I can do. It doesn't matter how many troops I pump out, I can in no way defeat this amount of troops. And sometimes it just decides to murder you with that. So if you play the game, you kind of have to be ready to make a lot of save games. That's why I made a lot of save games. And you have to be ready to just get really, really frustrated and yell at your screen and just quit the game at some point, because that's what happens. But even with that, I would say it's still a great game just for the early campaign missions when it's not that overpoweredly difficult. And I mean, if you have the patience, you can probably get through this. I mean, I've gotten 14 missions through the game. At some point I might actually finish it. But you just have to go into it with a bit of a sense of patience and willingness to let go. Because if I try to beat this, I would probably just get really, really annoyed. Because I would wear my face into trying to defeat these guys. Besides that, that's mainly all the part of the game, I believe. You have the options. Oh yeah, okay. You have the distribution of wares, which allows you to more easily decide what wares are supposed to go where. That sentence didn't make much sense now. So you can kind of adjust how much corn is supposed to be bought to the mill, which will turn into flour, or how much is supposed to be bought to the pigs to make more pigs. Technically it normally works, but I've seen some cases where they just ignore it. I've seen some cases where I've told them to bring like only 1 out of 5, and then somehow it still gets more. I think it has something to do with the range. I think they are more likely or more willing to walk a shorter distance because they're lazy douchebags. So sometimes they will bring stuff to the building you don't actually need it in because it's closer by. But it tends to work pretty well. You have this statistics page, which is very useful to make sure that you have the correct amount of, for example, carpenters, because you need, I have 3 sawmills, 1 ramp production, and 1 armory, so I need 5 carpenters, so I have 5 carpenters. This is very useful. They updated this with a modification to make it more useful. It was already pretty good before, but now it's great. There's like, you never get confused with this. That is pretty much all the part of the game. So you can kind of see what I meant with them just destroying my town, though. There's nothing you can do at this point. They are so douchebaggy, they will literally bring their food all the way up here to feed their soldiers while they are murdering my people. Because I guess killing makes you really want to eat food. You have this message log, which will always bring you messages. They changed this with a modification. Before it used to be a new message every time and you delete the messages, but now it's actually one log that just keeps track of all the messages, which I've not played the mod enough to really judge this if it works any better or worse than before, but it does its job. There's no fog of war also, as you probably noticed. And I should really probably end this video, but I'm rambling. Yes. Ponies. See you guys next time.